Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to feature a previously deleted interview. This was deleted from YouTube. Now this is a video for my Australian fans. I had an Australian fan request that I cover, or that I post up this interview of Nicolaas Bester by Bettina Arndt. Now who are these people that I'm naming here? Nicolaas Bester, Bettina Arndt. In the States we don't know who they are. Bettina Arndt is, I think she's Australian, and she does anti-feminist work. She's done a lot of it, and you can check her out. She's got a lot of really good stuff to say. And then Nicolaas Bester is a man who was arrested he was a teacher at one time, and when he was in his 50s he had an affair with a teenage student, and so he was arrested for that and imprisoned. Now I am not a fan of Nicolaas Bester. I'm not doing this as a way of saying, hey, look, Nicolaas Bester is fine. He's just this poor victim of... No. He admits that he did something wrong. He admits that he broke the law and that he should have been punished for it, and he did get punished for it, and I agree. But I'm doing this because I am anti-Grace Tame. Now, Grace Tame is the teenager he had an affair with, who is now very much an adult. And she has used this incident to become Australia's Person of the Year. She has exaggerated the claims of this supposed affair, the events that happened in this affair, grossly exaggerated. She says that she was brutalized by Nicolaas Bester almost every day of school for 6 months on his office floor. Not true. She leaves out the parts where she was sneaking around away from her family, lying to her family to go meet Nicolaas Bester in a hotel, to go meet Nicolaas Bester in a house. So these are not things you do if you're being brutalized by someone. And I'll address more of that as the interview goes on. I think the fan that requested this just wanted me to post this interview on my YouTube channel, but in a true anti-woke warrior fashion, I'm going to add in my commentary on this situation. Before we get started, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, make sure that you're still subscribed, and follow me on Twitter. Now, I do want to point out that this interview was uploaded to the YouTube channel Feminism Debunked. I know that you watch some of my videos, Feminism Debunked. I'm not trying to take any credit from you or what you're doing. You do great work. Check out his channel. I will leave a link to these videos for this interview in the comments below. I hope that you're all right with me sharing this. Like I said, I'm doing it for one of my followers who asked me to upload these interviews to my channel. And if you're okay with it, then thanks in advance. And if not, just send me a comment, and I can take them down. I'm not going to want to impede on the work that you're doing, because I know that you do a lot of really good work. But giving full credit to Feminism Debunked, let's take a look at this interview.
Should a convicted sex offender be allowed to study at an Australian university? First instinct is probably to say no way, imagining some ghastly man preying on innocent young female students. Having heard so many terrible stories of children being sexually exploited by adults, we're all rightly concerned about any such possibility and determined to do what we can to keep young people out of harm's way. But today I want to introduce you to a so-called sex offender to show you these stories are often much more complex than we assume. In 2011, Nicolaas Bester was sentenced to nearly 3 years in prison following the discovery of a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old student when he was a science teacher at a Tasmanian private school. He served his sentence, was released in 2013, and is now doing a PhD in chemistry at the University of Tasmania. But his life is being made hell by vigilante feminists who've made him the poster boy for the Safe Spaces campaign being run on the Tassie Uni campus. He's been banned from attending the uni library and the gym. Demonstrators have been camping out in front of his house. There's a petition to stop him attending the university at all. And he's just lost his job playing the organ in a local church. The man is not a pederast. This is not a man with a history of sexually preying on children. He's a man who made mistakes, served his time in prison. A man, I believe, should be allowed to get on with his life. I thought you might like to meet Nico and hear his story. Welcome, Nico.
Thank you, Bettina. So nice to see you in the flesh.
Nice to talk to you.
I'm a big fan.
I want to go back and describe briefly what happened to you. Now, you're South African and you were married with young children when you migrated to Australia, and that was due to the concern about unrest at the end of apartheid. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And I'm presuming that was quite a tough time for you.
Well, yes, it was. It began when we were living in York in the UK, and the news from South Africa was very bad. And so we decided to immigrate to Australia. And to cut a long story short, we decided it was best for the children, and it was a good place to make a new start. So we started here in 1987, in May 1987, and then moved to Hobart in 1988, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, I have a friend who is a South African national who moved out because apartheid ended, and it just became uninhabitable. And she talks about how her friends who are still there tell her that, nice metropolitan areas of the city, shopping districts are now just dirt roads, and everything is dilapidated because they've let the country fall apart. So good reason to get out of South Africa, I would say. It's after apartheid ended. Let's see here.
Mm-hmm. And so things were sort of settling down when you got a job teaching at a private school in Hobart.
Yes,
but then and then you made a big mistake. You got sexually involved with one of your students. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, for the first few years I taught at a boys' school, and then I got a job at the sister school, at the girls' school, and I was there very happily for many, many years. And then I got involved. Things were not happy. I was not a happy man. And in 2010, I got involved with one of my students for about 6 months, from July to December. Yes.
And eventually that was discovered, that relationship.
Yes, it was.
The police got involved. Now, I just want to mention that they found some images of children on your computer. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I can. What happened was I downloaded a font. It was actually a copyright font, so the download was illegal, and it came down in a zip file. And I opened the zip file, and all of these images suddenly splayed themselves all over my desktop, and which, of course, is the risk you take when you download things you don't know about. And so I deleted them all, but of course, as we know, they're never all deleted.
So I don't know about this here. This sounds like it's not true to me, but I download stuff all of the time, and I've never had this happen. The files that come along with a download go into a specific folder, not onto your desktop. And now maybe his settings are different on his computer. I suppose this could happen. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility, obviously, but I've never heard of anything like this happening. Maybe some people who know a lot more about IT can go down in the comments and let me know if this is a thing that happens. I have received pornographic images, but they go into a specific extra downloads folder. I don't even know where that folder is on my computer. I found it one time and I was like, what is all of this? And I got it from actually downloading a test for a job interview. So yeah, these carrier images come, but yeah, I've never heard of going all over your computer, just going to one folder. So that's kind of strange to me. Maybe Nico is being dishonest about this. I don't know. The courts charged him for it, so
And so, of course, when all of this blew up, they looked at my computer and recovered. We're able to sort of recover by electronic means these images.
Yeah. And so you end up in prison and you lost everything. Tell me about the cost for you.
Oh, I lost everything. I lost my home. I've been married for 37 years. I lost my marriage. I lost my children. I lost my job. I lost my status in the community. I lost absolutely everything. It was a devastating time. But
so he didn't serve very much time in prison, only about 2.5 years. And in the United States, that would be a very short sentence for something like this. We have this saying, 15 will get you 20. And I think it's more like 15 will get you 10, but still, that's a long time. He probably got out a little bit early for good behavior. But on top of going to prison, he lost his family. He lost his job. He lost his standing in the community. Those are important things where, this is going to follow him around and he's going to have a hard time.
I take full responsibility for what I did. It was illegal. I knew it was illegal, and I paid the price.
I mean, you think it was reasonable that you had to serve a prison term in that circumstance?
It was the law. It's the law, and the law is quite clear. If you're having sex with a woman and she is 17 years old today, and it's 1 minute to midnight, and she's 18 tomorrow, then tonight it's illegal, and 1 minute past midnight when she's 18, it's legal.
Yeah, but you knew at the time she was under.
Oh yes, I did. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you come out from prison and you spend time on the dole looking for jobs, and finally got a position, a PhD. Decided to do a PhD in chemistry at University of Tasmania.
That's correct. Yes.
And then you did something else pretty stupid. I can imagine how easily this happens.
But look, it was late one night. I'd had a skin full of wine, and I was on Facebook, and somebody trolled me. I got into an argument about Gillian Triggs, God curse her.
Of all people. That's the ironic touch in this whole horrible story.
I was trolled, of course. Immediately they discovered who I was, and they trolled me, and I said something which was illegal. Again, I didn't realize at the time it was illegal, but anyway, the upshot of that was that I ended up.
But essentially, you made a comment about really quoting some of the Facebook messages that this young woman had talked
Exactly.
when the young woman was talking
Exactly.
about your relationship. Yeah.
Exactly, but to actually quote her meant that I was breaking the law, because it fell under the ambit of an act that says it's illegal to publish anything which depicts a sexual act with a person who is under 18.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that, even though
And
she'd said it on Facebook and I was quoting her, it didn't matter. I was actually publishing it, and so I was held accountable for that, and that was also illegal.
And you ended up in prison again.
11 weeks, yep.
Yep. Okay, so we've now up to 2016, and you're released, and you're working at university, studying full time at the University of Tasmania.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Well, it actually started in May when the University of Tasmania Women's Collective decided they would start a campaign to have me excluded from the campus on the basis of this safe spaces thing, which is going around in the universities, which you know about and which you've written about.
Oh yeah, we all need to make sure we have our safe spaces everywhere we go. You know, it's understandable to want to keep your children safe. These are adults. He's at university. You know, I have students come on to me, some more obviously than others, but had both men and women make passes at me, show their interest in me. But now, in my case, it's not illegal because they're adults. I'm dealing with adults. So it's not like he is going to school with children. He's at a campus with adults. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Let's keep watching and see what comes up.
So the poor old university who decided to take me on, God bless them, that was their policy, that they wouldn't discriminate against me. And so the university actually has ended up as being the meat in the sandwich. UTAS Women's Collective have carried on this highly malicious campaign, and they started a petition, an online petition, not as a matter of general principle, but naming me specifically as the reason why they wanted.
So you're the poster boy for their campaign.
Poster boy for the campaign, exactly. And yes, and so they got 3,500 signatures, but of course it's on Facebook, so it's friends of friends, you know, and that kind of thing. And of course they ran a campaign in the press, and they ran a campaign on television. As I've shown you all the clips and everything. And
there was something about, I mean, you were accused of acting in a predatory manner to women at the gym.
Oh well, I've never been shown the complaint. I've never been told who the complainants were or what the complaint was. But I make no excuses for going to the gym. I've been going to that gym since 1992. And I spend hours there. I'm a gym junkie, and I'm a bit of a fitness tragic, and so I make no excuses. I mean, sometimes I spend as much as 5 hours there.
Now, this has happened to me. I've shared this story before, but the gym I used to actually work at this gym, which is weird that they hired me after this incident, but all right. Girl that I talked to on, 11, 12 different occasions. We were walking out of the gym together, and there's a coffee shop right down, a block away in the same shopping center. I'm like, hey, you want to go grab, want to go head over to, and she's like, oh, no, blah, blah, whatever, different excuses, right? She came up with some lame excuse to make any sense. And so I was like, no, let's, that doesn't matter, let's go. And then she's another excuse, and again, I was like, so nobody cares about that. And then finally she's like, I gotta go study. And so then she disappeared. I didn't see her for 6 months or something, at least a few months. She came back and accused me of stalking her. And she went to, the general manager of the gym, and she's like, yeah, this guy, he's being inappropriate with me. And the gym manager was like, there's men and women all over the gym here. What do you expect them to do? They're just going to act like men and women do. And so he sat me down, and he couldn't remember her name. And I was like, I know who it is, because there's only one girl that I'd ever asked from the gym to have coffee with me. And it's not like I hadn't ever had coffee with anybody at the gym before. Like I make friends at the gym, and they usually are like, hey, let's go. We're going to go to the coffee shop. You want to come? Well, yeah, sure. We can hang out and talk and chat and whatever. So even though I was interested in this girl, I didn't know she had a boyfriend. All she had to do was say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go hang out with my boyfriend. Okay, cool. Have fun. And I would have moved on. I didn't know that she had a boyfriend. He didn't go to the gym. So ridiculous stuff like that. These girls, you know how it is. I talk about these Western girls, just everything is a tragedy. Oh my God, he said something to me. What a terrible human being. Why? Because I want to have a relationship? Oh, I'm just the worst, aren't I? Oh my God. Just the worst thing ever. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah. But someone made a complaint about that. So the university's been trying to help negotiate all of this, allowing you to continue your studies. Yep. You've had to make certain compromises.
Well, I was I volunteered certain compromises, yes, because I'm now in the business of writing my thesis. I spend most of my time at home. I go and see my supervisor from time to time, and my supervisors are very supportive of me, and I go and see him. I go and see my supervisors when necessary in order to catch up.
But they've also been using the media. I mean, Classic is one of the big activists in this area, Nina Funnell. She's written some totally misleading information about you in one of the articles she's written. I mean, it's very interesting that they continue to name you and present a lot of misinformation about what happened.
Yeah. I've lost touch directly with my children, but I do know for a fact that they found this very distressing. Mm-hmm. And in spite of what they may think of me, they are still my children and I love them. That's the bottom line. And I've decided that I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And so I've taken legal action against the Women's Collective, and particularly against Heidi LaPaglia, who's the ringleader of this whole business.
I mean, you've even had people demonstrate outside your house, photographing you going in and out of your house.
Indeed, yes. Well, yes, on 2 occasions. Once on the 9th of August, and once on the 11th. Once on the 9th, and once on the 10th of August. And in a meeting which I'd had with the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, she said to me that if I was ever harassed at home, that would be a matter for the police. And so I took her advice, and I went to go and see the Hobart CID, and I lodged a complaint in that regard. I didn't have my mobile with me. I was going out for a run, and so I wasn't able to take a photograph, but they were quite clear as to who they were and where they were from.
And then apparently they said they were planning to show everyone where you live. I mean, what did that feel like for you?
Well,
I mean, it must be very frightening.
It's highly intimidating, because I live in accommodation with mostly graduate students, older students, and it's very good accommodation. It's clean and it's tidy, and it's student accommodation, and it's ideal. And I don't want to use that. What's not going to happen, Bettina, is I'm not going to skulk around in a grey overcoat in little dark corners at night. That's not going to happen.
So yeah, you notice how this woman's organization is treating him like he is some sort of predator, and they're allowed to get away with it, whereas he's the one who has to suffer through all this. Now, yeah, like I said, admittedly, he messed up, but he's paid his price, supposedly. According to Australia, he's paid his price. He paid the price to society for what he did. So whether I like it or not, Australia says it's okay. I can argue with them about it, but they're letting these women harass him now, even though they say he paid his price. Now let's let people harass him. This is ridiculous. You can't have it both ways. Did he pay his price or didn't he? If he didn't pay his price, okay, fine, let him harass him. Of course, that's probably illegal still, but I make allowances for all sorts of things. But so annoying to me that this is allowed to go on the way that it is.
That's not going to. Whatever crimes are committed have been paid for. We have courts who decide outcomes, listen to evidence and decide outcomes. And that's where the outcomes are decided. Justice Escort made that quite clear in an article he wrote in the Law Review.
Yeah, I was very pleased to see that, and he named you specifically and talked about the sort of campaign that's being run about against you. Yeah.
It is sheer vigilantism. That's all it is.
Okay, I just want to mention the last indignity, if you like, the fact that you're a talented musician. You play the piano, the organ, and the harpsichord, and you recently had which must have been very nice, another job playing an organ in a church, but they managed to take that away from you too.
Well, what happened was, look, I'm a practicing Catholic, and it turned out that they needed a temporary organist because they were going to be without an organist until they found a new one in March. And so they approached me and asked if I would play, in the interim, particularly over, Advent and Christmas. And so, yes, I took it on and I went along and I started off and played for the first choir practice. And then the next day I had an interview with the administrator, and dear old Father Shami, he was so embarrassed, and so my heart went out to him. But of course, they'd had phone calls, and somebody got wind of it, and there'd been a campaign, and they'd had 7 phone calls of people objecting to my playing the organ. And I don't even train the choir really. The choir is very good; they don't really need me. But yes, so that's the one.
So it goes on, and you must really wonder whether you're ever going to be allowed a chance to start a new life.
It's not a question of.
Precisely. I mean, he's paid his penance to society, but yet this still falls in line. And this is what happens with guys who do this sort of thing. Men who abuse women in this way, usually their life is over. In the United States, it's guys who are registered on the registry. They can't get jobs, so you got to start your own business and hope nobody looks into your background when they're hiring you. And it ruins your life. So don't bother doing it. It's not worth it. I've had the opportunity a couple times. I was walking down the street in Santa Barbara with this guy. I don't hang out with him anymore, but this girl came up to me and started asking me about my sunglasses, and she was probably 15. Like, I just answered her questions. I didn't care. She's some girl. And when she got done, we walked away, and he's like, he was like, dude, you could have had a 15-year-old. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, she wasn't interested in your sunglasses. She was interested in you. And maybe she was. I don't know. But I'm not interested in her. And another thing, oh, man, there's another girl at the gym. Before the lockdowns, there was this family that would go to the gym. Middle-aged man and woman and their daughter, teenage daughter. She's like 15. She might have been older, but she looked like she was 15. I don't know. But she keeps checking me out, always looking at me, always looking in my direction, always. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to. I'm a married man. And I don't want to be with a 15-year-old anyway. So, yeah, these teenage girls are out there doing this stuff, chasing after older men. There's a famous book written about this called Lolita. If you haven't read Lolita, I read it. It's about a 13-year-old girl who ends up having an affair with an adult man. And, yeah, it's just, that is a situation that has been around in society forever. Not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that's the way it is. So let's finish up this interview, and we can end on hopefully a high note, but we'll see.
Am I being allowed a chance? I shall have it. I shall have it.
So there you are. I've seen all the evidence in this case, and there are various issues that really interest me. Over the years, I've talked to many male teachers about sexually provocative behaviour from female students. Sensible teachers, of course.
Yeah. So the truth is, Grace Tame stalked Nicolaas Bester. She stalked him. She wrote him love letters. She was provocative with him. And she seduced him. Now, the law says that's impossible, that she's a child, she can't do that, and he is at fault. Okay. I can agree with that. But the fact of the matter is that she is using this to build herself up and say things like, men are evil in our society, and it's support that whole notion that, we're all the men are the bad, we're toxic masculinity, that's the problem with the world. It has nothing to do at all with women's agency. Women have no agency because men rule everything.
To run a mile from these girls, but the teachers are still really vulnerable because they can be easily subject to false accusations if they reject or offend the young woman in question. Here we have an example where evidence of the girl's sexually provocative behaviour was presented to the judge. Now, I'm not saying this for 1 minute absolves Nico of total responsibility for what he did. He deserved to be punished. We must have laws preventing children and young people from sexual exploitation by people in positions of authority. The question that remains for me is whether there's any room in this conversation for talking to young people, particularly young girls, about behaving sensibly and not exploiting their seductive power to ruin the lives of men. But that aside, there's no question that what's happening to Nico now is deplorable.
Yeah, so Grace Tame, also in addition to her seducing Nico and having this affair with him, she knew that he was married and that he was old enough to be her grandfather. What are you doing running around with a man that is that much older than you, who's married, who has a family, who's your teacher? But here she is, Australian of the Year, writing that event in her life to make herself popular and wealthy.
Ignorant, vindictive women are deliberately promoting misinformation about Nico as part of their nonsensical campaign to present university campuses as risky places for young women. This campaign, of course, suffered a major setback after the release of the Human Rights Commission data showing there is no crisis on our campuses. So they've picked up Nico's case and they're totally misrepresenting the facts. Nico is a man who did something stupid and paid the price for it. With other crimes, when people serve their sentences, they're supposed to be given a chance to resume their normal lives. It's really alarming to me that our society is caught up in this witch hunt around child sexual abuse, which deliberately misrepresents the risks that people who commit such crimes pose to our society. Expert forensic psychologist Dr. Christopher Lennings and Louise Rufile, they were representing the Australian Psychological Society, and they presented evidence from decades of research on this issue for a parliamentary committee that was looking at sentencing on child sexual assault offenders. They showed it's simply not true that all child sex offenders can't stop going out and preying on children. That applies only to a small group of offenders, mainly men who actually seek out boys. Contrary to public opinion, sex offenders generally have low rates of recidivism, the psychologist concluded. And in fact, there's been actually a steady drop over the last 20 years in the rates of recidivism amongst child sex offenders. It's hysterical nonsense to suggest that a man who rapes a child is the same as a teacher who falls for a sexy young teenage girl and stupidly has an affair with her. We need to differentiate between real predators who need proper vigilance and treatment and foolish men or women who make mistakes they're never likely to repeat.
Yeah, so Nicolaas Bester has the right to speak. We have freedom of speech. I don't know how Australia parses that out, but here in the United States, he should have the right to speak. Everybody should have the right to speak, to present their ideas, their thoughts. He has the right, apparently, to go to this college that he's going to. yeah, he made a mistake. He got with Grace Tame. I don't see a lot of evidence here to suggest that he is some sort of predator. He's paid his price according to Australian judicial system. What he did was wrong. We all know that. Don't put him around teenage girls and everything should be fine. Not that there are going to be very many teenage girls that want to be with, geez, he's got to be 70 now. Wow. I knew a guy who was 60 and he was with a 19-year-old, but that's the biggest difference I've ever seen, I think. That many years. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.